you're a target. Now you actually have people that are trying to hurt you or kill you sometimes. You're not just having your drill instructor yelling at you because you weren't fit. If you're continuously declining and losing muscle year after year, you're losing body armor every single year. I always tell people, be the officer that you want if your family's in need. So if your wife or your family is in need and they call your department, I want you to be that officer that you want to show up for them.
Welcome to Fit PD. My name is Juan Cephas, and today's guest really embodies strength, both on and off duty, what first responders should really be thinking about. Our guest is Dru Mejico. He has 14 years of law enforcement experience with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, and he is the founder of 9/11 Strong. He has a strength and conditioning program geared for first responders to be a better version of themselves. He's trained thousands of people, first responders. He's trained people that are getting ready to start an academy. He's trained people that are already serving in the street to have longevity within their job. And he's also trained tactical populations who know the importance of physical top shape performance. So he's getting all those different populations ready for a career in law enforcement. Dru believes that fitness is not about aesthetics. He believes that it's about performance and doing the job that you've been asked to do, all the different tasks as a first responder. Get ready to enjoy this conversation. That's going to be a powerful conversation on discipline, lifelong fitness, and what it really means to be ready for anything. Dru, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate the intro, brother. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to get after it and kind of, teach you guys and just show your audience a little bit more about strength conditioning and tactical population and everything like that. So let's get after it.
Right on. Hey, man, you know what? So you spent some time with the Sheriff's Department. And just tell me a little bit about your experience as you're going through the academy. And I don't, most academies, they all fall under post, so they have certain standards. And, but we're all pretty much kind of the same, right? Just depending on the staff. But as you're going through the academy, what's your assessment of the physical fitness program?
So when I went through 14 years ago, it was completely new to me. I didn't come from like a military background or anything like that. So going into that right after college and having that atmosphere of just getting yelled at 24/7, doing a bunch of push-ups, a bunch of runs, like I actually liked it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm kind of weird like that.
All right.
I like to feel like I'm working for something. You know what I mean? Like, and I love training already. So obviously, when you're on those inspection grounds and you're getting drilled, it's not fun, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you're getting paid to work out. So you got to just embrace it and go from there, right?
Right.
But it was a complete change from the different type of training than I was used to. Because I grew up, after 18, I kind of really got into training, and it was more like that bodybuilding era to where, I wanted to look like Arnold. Everybody wanted to look like Arnold, and that's kind of how I trained previously towards the academy. And then once I found that I was going, I obviously switched up my training style a little bit. So it was just new, a lot of, higher repetition stuff, a lot of higher volume, a lot of running, things that I just wasn't used to. So I just had to train a little bit differently to get there. But, so that's kind of my transition into it. If that makes sense.
No, yeah. Now, did you find it, you found it to be different, but was it challenging, overwhelming, or just something that you just had to get adjusted to and perform well?
Yeah, I would say a mixture of both, man. It was definitely probably one of the most challenging things that I did go through. It was one of the most proudest moments, completing the academy when I was actually done. Like I felt more proud of doing that than going and getting my degree. and it was just it was definitely challenging. It was new environment for me, but it was something that I did enjoy, initially.
Now, at some point, you graduate from the academy and you end up hitting the streets, right?
So my career path went a little bit different with the sheriff's department. We go to the jails. So I was working in the jails, and I had a little bit of hiccups early on in my career. I kind of had a little bit of bad blood with some people, and it stopped me from being able to promote. So
Okay.
that's actually funny story how I started the business.
Wow.
It was completely by accident. I didn't mean to do that, but because I did have some hiccups early on in my career, that didn't allow me to promote initially like I wanted to on that actual path. It got me to grow my knowledge in strength and conditioning and developing this actual business. So once I started this was kind of like my main priority because I found out that there was nothing out there really specifically geared towards law enforcement officers and the tactical population other than like, CrossFit and, running long distance type stuff.
Right.
And I was a strength and conditioning coach myself. So I trained athletes from like 8 years old all the way up to the professional level. So I had that background of already had, knowing how to train. And not just training for like performance and strength and conditioning and building functional muscle, building grip strength, building core rotational strength, things like that. So once I realized that there was a lack of that with law enforcement personnel, I realized that I was like that median ground to where I can blend strength and conditioning like athletes and blend that with the tactical population and form this business ultimately. So once I started this was kind of like my go-to thing that I was working on. So I never actually hit the streets. I worked in custody and then I worked in courts.
All right. Now, working while you're in the custodial environment, you know, you get people of all different sizes that are incarcerated. And tell us a little bit about that. Like, how important is it to be fit when you're working around people that are murderers, people that are, you know, criminals? And they, like I said, they come in different shapes and sizes, and now you got to deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, your fitness is your lifeline, right? Like if you're not just from a from a aesthetic standpoint, because they're going to size you up, right? They're going to see who's fit, who's in shape, who looks like a soup sandwich, and who looks like squared away, right?
Right.
And potentially the ones that look like soup sandwiches are the ones that they're going to come after initially, right? Because they feel like they can they got a better chance ultimately. So ultimately, just right off the bat, command presence is huge, right? Especially when you're walking the tiers, when you're just on a day to day. But aside from that, like being able to, yes, working in the jails, you do have a lot of people around you. You have backup that's, not when you're like on patrol, when you have backup minutes away, you get backup seconds away ultimately, when you're working in custody. But that 30-second fight can take a long time if you're underprepared. And if plus you don't know the type of training that these inmates have, right? They could have fighting experience, not just from the streets, but like actual professional experience that, and if you're not prepared for that, then you're going to find yourself in a really bad position.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we don't know the level of training that the people that we encounter may have, and especially being in Southern California, there's like a MMA gym almost in every single corner in every neighborhood. So, you know, criminals work out too. Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you see anything while working in the jails where, you know, it hit home where some people were underprepared?
Oh man, yeah. Unfortunately, like I've had partners, get attacked just because I mean, I don't want to say it's just based on the way that they looked. Obviously, anything could happen based on conversations that you had previously, how that inmate woke up, if he's trying to just chip and whatever the case may be. But I've seen some people in some bad situations, get attacked, that weren't prepared for it. And I hate to like, you hate to Monday morning quarterback things, but if ultimately they were more prepared, if they were stronger, if they were faster, if they were more powerful and explosive, then things could have shifted a little bit. And once I started training some of my coworkers, it was really cool to hear them, come to me after they got into a use force, whatever, and be like, dude, like because I was more powerful, because we were doing, power planes, or because we are doing whatever, like I noticed that I was actually able to control this inmate better, or I was able to just perform at a higher level. So that's always a good feeling as well.
Now, obviously, you just talked a little bit about the physical benefits of working out. What about, the confidence or the mental side? Does working out also benefit in that area?
Oh man, so much. I think it's working out and getting healthy is like a force multiplier, right? It can benefit you confidence in so many different ways. Like I just had I was working training a assistant police chief, and he was going for the actual chief, and he walked into that interview and he was like, Drew, if it wasn't for you and losing 30 plus pounds, like I walked into that room and I was confident as hell. I knew that I can do this compared to other people. That's just like on a professional standpoint, right? But like when you're doing things and there's other like threats, and you're walking you're on patrol, or you're walking the tiers, and you just feel more confident. Your shoulders are back, your chin is up, you're walking around rather than just kind of being slouched around. People can notice that style of presence when you're walking into a room, when you're just walking around. And there's a certain level of respect that people can kind of give you just based on the fact that they know that took work, right? You can't cheat that. That actually takes hard work to be able to get there. So having that overall confidence in yourself to be able to perform your duties at a high level, and just know that, like, hey, if shit pops off, like I'm ready for this. That's a good feeling.
Yeah, your success on the mat in the gym, it transfers over to your daily activities. So your success becomes confidence, and then that confidence just exudes as you are interacting with people. Yeah, I like that. You know what, Drew? What are some of the biggest fitness fails in law enforcement? So, what are some of the most common mistakes that officers make when it comes to fitness?
Yeah, great question, man. So one is going to be obviously not training whatsoever, right? You're always going to have those officers that graduate the academy and then don't train.
Right.
And so that's obviously mistake number one, is not getting after it. Mistake number two is trying to follow like a system that doesn't work for you and your schedule, right? Working shift work, you're working 12-hour days, 16-hour days, whatever your schedule is, but you're working those back to back to back, and then you're recovering after that. Now, if you're following a specific structure that's, let's just say a bodybuilding style split that's telling you to train 5 to 6 days per week. But realistically, you've got shift work, you've got overtime, you have a family and kids are in sports. You can't train 5 to 6 days per week. So what are you going to do? You're going to try to pick and choose what works best for you and the exercises and workouts that you want. And what does that lead to? That's going to lead to imbalances in your physique, imbalances in your strength, and that's going to lead to injuries. And you're not going to get good results from that. A couple other mistakes is having that like that all or nothing mentality. Is like, hey, if I can't go, all out, then I'm not going to go at all. And that's one of the biggest mistakes, because if you have, 20 to 30 minutes to train, and you normally train 60 minutes, and you say, hey, I'm not going to train because I can't get a full workout in, I think that's dumb. I think you should still train for 20 to 30 minutes, get something in, be effective, and then continue to get on with your day from there. When it comes to like a conditioning standpoint, like having the thought of like just doing long distance runs for conditioning. There's nothing wrong with distance runs if you enjoy it, but that's not the only form of conditioning that you have to build your aerobic and anaerobic systems. So when you're only doing certain styles of training and neglecting others, you're kind of you're shortchanging yourself overall. So those are a couple of the mistakes that I see. And then yeah, those are kind of the biggest ones that I would see right now.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I want to explore the one that you mentioned about the long distance running. Long distance running, if you love it, I mean, yeah, it's people love running. However, when it comes to law enforcement, what's your opinion about cardio, like long distance versus cardio for like grappling or for boxing? I mean, it's a different type of cardio, and which one is more relevant to our profession?
Yeah, that's huge. That's one of the things that I noticed too, like going through like the academy and just training courses and stuff. Like when you're going like fighting Red Man or something, you know what I mean? We're going back to the academy just really quick. Like just because it's a personal story. Like I remember, they gas you out before you're doing, push-ups, burpees, or whatever. Then you're hopping on the assault bike, and then you go on to fight Red Man. Like I remember gassing out during that. I'm like, holy crap, like this is a long 30 seconds. Like, and I still gotta, you know what I mean? Still gotta fight multiple people and do this. I'm like, I wasn't ready for that, you know, but that was like a eye-opening moment for me. Like, dude, like, okay, I need to do more than just distance runs. I need to incorporate some other style of training.
Right.
So aside from that, like that just kind of took me back really quickly. But yeah, like distance runs are good. Like you said, if you enjoy doing them, do them. If they're not banging up your joints, hey, cool. But at the end of the day, for one, you're never going to chase a suspect for, 5 miles at a 9-minute pace, right?
Right.
If you're doing it to build your aerobic system, cool. But you still have to have some anaerobic stuff to where we're going all out for a little bit, going out, let's just say, I don't know, for 30, 60 seconds, depending on what exercise selections that you're doing, and then resting, getting full recovery, and then getting back after it. Like that's going to build the type of conditioning that you need for the job. Now, the problem is that some people will do that stuff and they do it too often because we're thinking more like CrossFit WODs per se. Like if you do that all the time, your body's going to eventually break down. So you have to do that kind of stuff sparingly, and it has to fit within your strength and conditioning structure to be able to develop the overall goals that we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Which brings me to another question I just thought of. Programming. A lot of us, we either don't know what programming's all about, or we think we know, and then we do it wrong. So like what you just mentioned, where we're doing the same workout and it's a hit workout every single day, and you're exhausted, or you're running, thinking that running 10 miles is going to help you during a fight. How do we get around programming, or what do we do when it comes to programming?
Yeah, great question. So taking me back to one of my first clients that I ever trained within my 911 Strong program was my boy Devella. And he was, at that point, he was trained, he was working, his coworker was a long distance runner. So he wanted to lose some fat. So he was running. And I'm like, dude, what if you didn't run so much and you started training with me? So he was training with me inside the gym. And within the first 3 to 6 months, his body composition changed. He was getting stronger. He was getting more powerful and explosive. And I still talk to this guy still to this day. He's a great dude. And it just shows you that having the proper structure that's going to fit the demands of the job and your body composition and the goals that you're looking for is huge. So when it comes to programming, you have to find something that one, you enjoy doing, and two, that's going to work with your work schedule and your personal schedule. So for the majority of people, you can train at least 3 days per week, right? We all say that we're busy. We all have families and we all have, other responsibilities. But at the end of the day, if you really break down your time, majority of people can train 3 days per week for 45 minutes. That's kind of like a non-negotiable. The trick is finding something that works for your schedule. So like I work with a lot of people that, let's just say, work 12-hour shifts and then they have like a 1.5 hour commute home. So ultimately for that day, it's like a 16-hour day. Do they want to go to the gym after that session? Probably not. But can we? Yes, but it doesn't have to be that way because you still have 3 days off or 4 days off that you're not working. So those should always be training days, right? But if we can squeeze in 1 or 2 training sessions that are only like 15, 30 minutes on your actual work days, then that's going to be the better result rather than just training 3 to 4 days per week, in a strict window and then taking 3 to 4 days off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about some of your posts where you're on vacation and you may not have the facility that you usually work out at, but, you're putting together like a 20-minute WOD, 30-minute WOD or something with body weight exercises that, if we get home, we have it, we can put in a little workout in 20 minutes.
Yep. Absolutely. And no work and some work is better than no work, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dru, what's your opinion or suggestion for those that struggle with performance versus appearance? Because, there's a lot of people that think, hey, man, you know what? I need that bicep, tricep day. And pretty soon that's all you do.
Yeah. That's a great question. So performance should always be, in my opinion, if you're in this job, if you're stepping on stage and you're a bodybuilder, completely different story. But in this job, your number one priority should be performance. But with that, performance will improve your body composition because if you think about like let's just say an NFL player or a high college player or something like that, they're not training for looks. They're not training for the mirror. They're training to perform better at their sport. But they still look good. They're still shredded. They still have good, lean body mass. So that's what we should be looking for when we're training. Don't just and that's not to say that you're not going to look just because you're training for performance doesn't mean you're not going to look good too, because you are going to look good if you're training your performance. The looking good is just a side effect from training hard and strength training and conditioning. Now, with that said, there are ways that you can implement certain, weak points. Let's just say you did have small biceps and you wanted bigger biceps because when you're working, you want to have your arms a little tight. You want the biceps be popping, maybe some veins popping. There's nothing wrong with that. But if that's the main priority of your training, then that's where mistakes can happen, right? But if you can, I always tell people like when I'm training clients, like, hey, what is it that you want to work on? Like, I understand you want to improve these qualities. Is there anything else? Usually for the girls, it's always like, hey, I want bigger glutes or better shoulders, right? For guys, it's always like, hey, I want a bigger chest and I want bigger arms. Cool. We can work that into your program. The foundation is going to be strength and conditioning, but we're still going to incorporate some not a full day, but we're still going to incorporate exercises, drop sets, things like that to finishers to improve the qualities that you want. And that way I'm giving them I'm giving them what they want, but in actuality, I'm giving them what they need overall. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, what's your opinion on ego lifting?
Oh man. Yeah, I always tell people, man, when you're usually when you're under 30, you train with your ego. When you're over 30, you have to start training with your head. Like at the end of the day, when you're 35 years old, you can't do the same things that you did when you're 25 years old because your body's just not going to recover from that. And that's something I had to learn the hard way as well, because, I was always getting after it in my 20s. I was, powerlifting. I was lifting heavy. I was, deadlifting over 500 pounds, squatting over 400 pounds. And I was feeling good. But as I started to get older, the body doesn't recover that good. And even when I was later into my 20s, I was having a lot of like lower back pain. I was having knee pain. It would hurt in the morning to go bend over to tie my boots. I'm like, dude, it was just struggle. And I'm like, this is no way I can continue to do this. So, having that understanding of how to train properly and know that there's not certain exercises that you have to do. This is a really big thing to where, let's just say I'm coming across someone that's been training for years and they like the big three, the bench squat, the deadlift. Cool, nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing wrong with the trap bar deadlift either. That's going to put your body in a better position. There's nothing wrong with a football bar or a close grip bench press that just because you're not pressing this way doesn't mean you're not going to get the results. There's nothing wrong with doing a front squat rather than doing the back squat, which is going to put more pressure on your spine and your lower back. So there's different exercises that you can substitute through. And in fact, for a lot of my clients, for every single one of my clients, we never start with the squat, bench press, or deadlift. We always start with variations of that are going to build that foundation. So we kind of work our way up to that. So like, for example, it could be like for the squat variation, it could be like okay, we're going to start with the goblet squat. Then we're going to go to a front squat. Then we're going to go to a box squat, and then we can go to an actual squat, right? But there's tiers and levels that you have to hit before you can just go directly to the main lifts, if that makes sense. And for some people, we may not even get there because that's not the main goal. But as long as we're training the movement patterns, you're going to get the goals that you want. Make sense?
Makes sense to me. I hear you saying leave the ego at the door and just work on your foundations and then build your expertise. I mean, it makes sense when you say it, but when you're actually doing it, we're human beings, right? Dru, why does muscle matter?
Yeah. So from a health perspective, like it's going to improve your overall insulin sensitivity, like, regulate blood sugar, improve your metabolic health, things like that. From a performance standpoint, it's also going to improve. I mean, there's a saying that says a bigger muscle has the potential to be a stronger muscle, and a stronger muscle has the potential to be a more powerful and explosive muscle. So that's like building muscle is kind of like your foundation to overall strength and performance. So that should think of it like your body armor. So you want to have a good solid muscle foundation on you. On top of that, it's going to protect your joints overall. Like if you're not strong enough to just walk around with all the gear that you have, if you're not strong enough to just perform your day-to-day tasks, your joints are going to take your joints are going to take the brunt of the demands of whatever it is that you're doing for that specific day. So joint health is going to be huge, reducing injuries. So muscle is always going to be your foundation. You should always be trying to build more muscle tissue.
Now, I hear you mention the joint health and building the muscles around the joints to make you stronger and healthier ultimately. The top three injuries that cops or first responders kind of consistently are exposed to are shoulders, lower back, and knees, right? Just because of the nature of the job. But sometimes, we get recruits that come in, they're really lacking muscle and strength. What do you tell those folks? What approach should they take to fitness?
Yeah, so are we talking specific like to academy recruits and applicants coming in, or just cops in general?
Well, you know what? Let's just start with recruits and applicants that are coming in that are weak, lack muscle, but yet now they're going to have to start performing, and they're susceptible to possible injuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So anytime I'm training an academy recruit or an applicant, we always start with the foundation principles where we're going to squat, we're going to press, we're going to hinge, we're going to pull, and we're going to carry. We're going to do some type of core movements, right?
Right.
So before we even get to academy specific type stuff like academy cycles, long distance run sprints, we're developing a foundation. Because if you think of it like, like a triangle or like a house, like we're building that foundation for the house, because there's no point of building your dream home on top of a cracked foundation.
Right.
And if you're approaching, academy preparation like that, your body will break down because you're not going to have the strength of the muscle tissue surrounding your joints, and your joints are going to take the hit of that. So if you're doing a bunch of push-ups and you're not strong enough to actually do push-ups properly, and your hips are dipping, now you're going to have lower back pain. Maybe if you're putting a lot of pressure on your shoulders as you're pressing, your shoulders are going to give out. If your upper back and thoracic spine and posterior shoulders are not strong enough to maintain all the high volume of push-ups, your shoulders once again are going to give out. When it comes to knee pain, if you're just trying to just run right off the gates and do a bunch of body weight squats without developing your posterior chain, your glutes, your hamstrings, your lower back. If you're not doing all that stuff before you get to academy specific stuff, you are going to be more prone to injuries without a doubt. When it comes to even like back injuries as well, if all you're doing is sit-ups, because that's what you're going to be doing in the academy, sit-ups and planks, but you're not developing true core strength, where we're focusing on, anti-rotation, anti-flexion, anti-extension, things like that, to where actually developing core strength 360 degrees and not just focusing on those six-pack muscles, then you're going to be more prone to injuries. So you have to develop those foundations before we get to academy specific.
All right. I mean, that sounds like common sense to me, but you know what? Sometimes common sense is not common. Now, what about the officers that are already on the job? And, a lot of us get into the lifestyle of being a cop with bad diets and not working out because of shift work, families, stuff that you already mentioned, and we end up losing muscle over time. What happens to the body when we lose muscle over time?
I mean, ultimately, you're just breaking yourself down. If the muscle is considered like your body armor, if you're continuously declining and losing muscle year after year, you're losing body armor every single year. Your performance is going to lack. You're going to be weaker, obviously. You're going to be more prone to injuries. It's still kind of those same scenarios with academy prep, but now you're a target. Now you actually have people that are trying to hurt you or kill you sometimes. You're not just having your drill instructor yelling at you because you weren't fit. So it's different stressors on top of that. So it's a lot more important when you're actually on the job to make sure that you are strength training and building muscle. Because if not, you're going to find yourself in a really bad situation. And on top of what I just mentioned earlier, as far as like from a health perspective, insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, or blood sugar levels, metabolic health, things like that can all start to decrease as we if we just continue to allow our muscle tissue to essentially just get lower and lower every year.
What advice do you give to detectives? Because sometimes that's even a different lifestyle as a cop.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting down, you're sedentary for long periods of time, you're on surveillance, and it could be difficult, right? But at the end of the day, when you're not training, so like I just train, I train a good amount of detectives actually. So what we have to figure out is what their schedule is. Obviously, they're going to be if they're not on surveillance with someone, they're doing paperwork, they're doing desk work, they're sitting down for long periods of time. Get up, try to get active as much as you can, right? That's first and foremost. We got to try to stay active, try to get your steps in on a daily basis if possible. And when it comes to nutrition, like if you're in the office, you're in control, in control of what you're eating, right? Yes, there's going to be other temptations that come into the office. But you just have to eat your meal prep, and it's that simple, right? You prep your food, you eat the food that you prep, and don't worry about any of the other garbage. If you're out and about, you're driving around a lot of places. The cool thing now is that obviously fast food is not healthy for you, right? But the good thing is that if you're tracking the amount of food that you're eating, you'll know how much food that you still need to eat to sustain the energy. And there's still healthier choices that you can eat while you're out there, right? You can get a sandwich, you can get a wrap. You don't have to get a greasy burger, fries, and a Coke, right? Because that's just gonna, for one, that's gonna deplete your energy. You're gonna be tired as heck after that. Cognitive function is gonna be off. Your hydration is gonna be off, right? So there's different things that we can still implement even for detectives, that are still going to be able to be efficient.
Now, what about what does survival ready actually mean, Dru?
Yeah, I mean, I consider that just being fight ready. Like you at the end of the day, I mean, when you're in the academy, you have the will to survivor. There's the different departments. I call it different. And at the end of the day, you're going to be tired. You're going to be energy. You're going to be sleep deprived. Energy is going to be dipping. Sometimes you may be living off of caffeine for a little bit, but at the end of the day, when you're training the proper way, you're training for survival, like you just said, right? You're training to be strong. You're training to be an athlete. You're training to get home safe to your family and keep your partner safe. So, ultimately, when you're training, you have to think about stuff like that, not just mere muscles.
Now, sometimes when we think about training for survival for first responders, specifically cops, we think about, at least I think about defensive tactics and the correlation to strength and conditioning. What's your opinion of that topic?
Yeah, I think every cop should be doing some type of DTAC or jujitsu or some form of DTAC training every single week. It could be 1 or 2 times per week on a minimum, but I don't think that should replace necessarily your strength and conditioning. I think they should work hand in hand to where your strength and conditioning is building your foundation, it's building your energy systems, it's building your conditioning, it's building your gas tank. And then the skill work is going to pair with that to be able to give you the ultimate results that you're looking for. I grew up playing football. So if you think about like I played defensive back. So if all I did was do defensive back drills and back pedals and shuffles and things like that, I'm not going to be the best player on the field because if that's the only thing that I'm doing 7 days per week. But if you're training in the gym, if you're doing your conditioning on top of that, plus your skill work, then you're going to become a better athlete. So it's the same thing with that. If you're doing strength and conditioning as a cop, you're doing DTAC as a cop, you're going to become a better cop.
I like the way you put that. Sounds like that should be part of the formula to be successful.
Yes.
Now, what about power versus endurance versus agility? What should first responders kind of focus on?
Yeah, so strength should always be your foundation, no matter what. So train to be strong first and foremost, okay? When it comes to agility, like agility doesn't only have to be stuff like on the field, like you doing, shuttles or cone drills or things like that. Agility can start inside the gym. So if you think about it from agility standpoint, if you change agility is changing directions, right? So if we're chasing something or if we're just sprinting and we have to break down, change direction, that is what's called eccentric strength. So if I'm sprinting somewhere and I have to break down, I'm using eccentric strength to slow my body down and then redirect that in a different direction. So that starts inside the gym with eccentric training. So if we're doing, let's just say Bulgarian split squats, which is the most hated leg exercise known to man, but we're just not just going up and down, but we're lowering down in like 5 to 6 seconds. We're building that eccentric strength and that muscle tissue to be able to develop a faster absorption into the ground to be able to adjust the other way. Same thing when it comes to just sprinting in general. Like you mentioned, like power production. Sprinting, especially acceleration, is being able to apply force into the ground to propel yourself forward. So if you're not strong enough to be able to like it, in order to be powerful, you have to be strong because power is strength times speed. So if you're only fast but you don't have any strength to multiply that, it's part of that equation is missing. So if you're stronger, you have more potential to put more force into the ground to be able to be faster. So they should be you should work hand in hand with on top of doing like your actual, sprinting work, agility type stuff like on the field or like on the turf or whatever.
So if you have a well-rounded program and you are consistent, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning during graveyard, and you got to chase somebody, your body should just take over. You shouldn't have to think about it. Hopefully that's how we're training, but as you very well know, most of us do not train like that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and speaking of graveyards, food. A lot of us don't food prep, and you get to your shift, and the only thing that's open is some kind of Bertos, Adalbertos, Robertos.
Albert tacos, Albert something,
Yeah.
right?
So what's your opinion or approach with food as fuel?
Yeah, so we'll talk about like specific night shift because you mentioned that, right? So a lot of times people screw this up and they kind of just for one, they kind of just snack and eat all throughout the night, things like that. Well, for one, that's going to be terrible for body fat. We have to know when you're working night shift, you have to know it requires a different eating time and schedule than working day shift because your body still wants to eat during the biological time of the day because it's going to digest it better. So if you're eating at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, a lot of that's going to be stored as fat. So we got to be careful with that. Now, when it comes to prepping your food, you still need to prep your food. Like if you're working night shift, you should be having 1 or 2 meals before you actually go into work. And then I always say take at least one meal to work that's got like a breakfast, a carb, and a fat because the protein's obviously going to improve your overall muscle. The carbs are going to give you fuel, and the fats are going to allow that fuel to stay in your system for a lot longer. So if we can pair those three things like anywhere in the around like 10 or 12 o'clock at night. I know those are sometimes the busier times, so sometimes it's not optimal, but if we can manage that, that's going to sustain us the energy that we need throughout the night. So we're not snacking and binging all throughout the night. And then once we, get off shift, that's we actually do want to have another small meal, like a protein and a carb. I always tell people like just slam a protein shake and have some oatmeal or something small because you do want some carbs in your system before going to bed because carbs actually although they give you energy, they actually help your body get into a parasympathetic state as well, which is your rest and digest system. And if you're coming off from a night shift, your adrenaline's already up. You're trying to stay awake. You're probably slamming caffeine. And if you're going to bed that way, it's going to take you a while to get to bed, or that sleep is not going to be that effective. So if we can shift you from a sympathetic state, which is your fight or flight system, down to your parasympathetic state before you actually get to bed, your sleep and recovery is going to be a little bit better. So that's kind of how I would structure things on night shift.
All right. And what about overall nutrition for first responders? What would be like your number one tip for people to maybe start thinking about making a change in their approach to nutrition?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for one, like a couple things that I can just think of off top is having 3 to 4 meals a day is as like your standard. Maybe that's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a shake, right? Like that's pretty reasonable for everyone to be able to sustain. Within each one of those meals, you have to learn, what's a protein, what's a carb, what's a fat, what vegetables you can eat, and plan your meals around that. So like when I initially start to work with somebody, we have what we call our code 7 system, and it's our primer phase. And it's eating 4 meals a day. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a shake, or you can have 4 meals if that works for your personal schedule. But within each one of those meals, we're going to have a protein source, we're going to have a carb source, or we're going to have a fat source. Because once again, protein is going to help you build that muscle. Carbs are going to sustain that energy. And then fats, for one, is going to help you that energy stay in your system longer. And it's going to be good for your hormones and cognitive function as well. So if we can sustain that, 3 times per day, then your body's going to recover a lot better. You're going to get better results. Your energy production is going to be better throughout the day. Better, blood sugar balance throughout the day, things like that. So you're not just spiking up and down, throughout your entire shift.
That sounds good. Now, what does 911 Strong do to help your clients bulletproof their body to prevent some injuries?
Yeah, so for one, so the business is actually called 911 Strong. I know a lot of people say 911 Strong. So I was never a business guy starting out, so I thought the name was cool, and then I realized, hey, a lot of people think it's 911 Strong. But I'm already in, so I'm not going to change the name anymore. But yeah, ultimately we kind of bridge that gap between all the nonsense that's out there in the world right now when it comes to, training and nutrition, because a lot of that stuff isn't geared towards the tactical population. So our number one goal is to build tactical athletes and teach them how to sustain their high level of performance throughout their career. Because a lot of times that energy, that the muscle, the performance, everything starts to dip after you pass 10 years. More stress comes into play, more responsibilities, kids, family, all that stuff. So we really focus on meeting our clients where they're at right now with their training and nutrition. Sometimes that may be tracking their macros. Sometimes that may be an actual meal plan that they follow. Sometimes that just may be, hey, I want you to eat these meals only, and just giving them a little bit of structure, but meeting them where they're at. Same thing with their training and with their conditioning, right? We're not just gonna have someone go from not training at all to training like a professional athlete, right? Their body's gonna break down. They're not gonna be able to handle that type of pressure, that type of volume. So we have to meet them where they're at and build them strategically so where they continue to make progress every single block and every single training phase that we're bringing them through. But ultimately, our goals are to help them shred fat, improve the overall body composition, improve their confidence on duty, improve their strength, lean muscle mass, and conditioning for the job.
Okay. Now, you know, I'm assuming that when you're coaching people, uh, part of your program includes warm-ups. And I want to talk a little bit about warm-ups because there's a lot of misperceptions about warm-ups. There's people that think that warm-up is stretching that cold muscle. And can you talk a little bit about proper warm-ups, please?
Yeah, great question. So we actually use what we call our 10-4 warm up. What we call it 10-4 because it should take no more than 10 minutes and there's four different components involved. Component number one is going to be soft tissue work. This should be some type of like foam rolling or lacrosse ball rolling, things like that to try to just stretch out or mobilize that fascia a little bit more. Phase two is going to be some type of reset. So resetting is like giving your body a tune up before it hits the track, right? So we can, a lot of times it's going to be individual based on the client. A lot of it is going to be resetting their shoulders, resetting their core, their diaphragm. Because if they're extended in this period of time and they have, lower back tightness, if I have them squat that day and they already have a tight lower back, their lower back's going to be that limiting factor in that session. So if we can get them to activate their core, get their rib cage down, get proper breathing, then we're going to be in a better place to train hard. So that's phase number two. Phase number three is going to be the actual dynamic warm up. This could be, any type of like hip mobility drills, shoulder mobility drills, thoracic spine type stuff, core engagement, and then the activation type stuff like activating the glutes, activating the upper back for pressing. These are all really important within your dynamic warm up. And then component number four is going to be finishing it off with some type of explosive movement or plyometric, right? For some people, it could be med ball slams, could be jump squats, something that's low impact, that's going to excite the nervous system, that's going to allow them to recruit more high threshold motor units within their training session, which is going to allow them to lift heavier and lift harder. So those are the four different components would be, some type of soft tissue work, self-myofascial release, some type of reset, your dynamic warm up, and then your power movement at the end.
Now, you brought up breathing. So I want to ask you about breathing because sometimes we tell people, hey, you got to breathe properly. But people don't even know what breathing is.
No, it's something that we do 20,000 times a day. That's just, we don't even think about it. It's just something that happens, right?
Right.
So now, when it comes, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You were going to go right into what I was going to ask, which is what is proper breathing?
Yeah. So proper breathing is being able to breathe with your diaphragm 360 degrees. So a tool that I like to use with people is if you take like a resistance band and you put a resistance band and tie it around your waist, around like your belly button area, and then you breathe. If you can't feel pressure into that band 360 degrees, that means you're not breathing properly. And most times people are chest breathers to where they're just inhaling like this. Because if you tell someone, hey, take 5 deep breaths, most likely they're gonna just inhale and they're going to look like this. Their chest is going to raise, their back's going to arch a little bit. But what they're doing is they're flaring their ribs. And when you flare your ribs, you're not in the optimal position to breathe properly and take as much air into the lungs as possible. So if we can get your diaphragm, if you think of your diaphragm of like a top and a bottom, right? So if you're inhaling through your chest, you're breathing, you're essentially you're making a really, I don't know if people can see this. So if you can't see it and you're visualizing it, one of my hands is going up in the air, the other one is going towards the ground, right? However, if we can breathe this way to where our hands are facing each other and we're expanding outward, you're going to get more air into the lungs and you're going to be able to breathe better and be more efficient with your breathing. You carry that into the gym as well, because if you're trying to brace your core, let's just say we're in where we're doing a squat, because we were talking about that. If you're in this super hyperextended position with your ribs flared, if you just flare your ribs out and you try to squeeze your core, you can't really engage your core that well because it's not in an optimal position. But if we can actually get our ribs down and our pelvis facing the right, they're facing each other, then we can activate our core a lot better, and that's going to protect our lower back when we're training. Now, from a recovery standpoint, if you're breathing improperly all the time, you're elevating your cortisol levels throughout the day, because you're just, without realizing it, you're sending, if you're chest breathing, you're sending signals to your body that's like your fight or flight system. But if you're in that system all day, that's not good for your overall recovery. So if we can get you to breathe properly, then you're going to be more parasympathetic, and it's going to be just better overall for your health and your cognitive function.
Now, what about we get a lot of mouth breathers during runs, during PT, during grappling or boxing, and that can't be good for you. Can you talk a little bit about the proper inhale and exhale?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to take the inhale through your nose and then exhale through your mouth. I recommend practicing box breathing. Box breathing could be like if you're like laying down on the ground, feet planted on the ground, or feet elevated on the bench or a box. This is actually going to teach you how to breathe 360 degrees to your diaphragm as well. But if you just take a deep breath through your nose and then exhale through your mouth, but doing that with your diaphragm, not by elevating your chest, you're going to be able to breathe more efficiently, and you're going to recover a lot better as well, rather than just breathing in through your mouth all the time. And plus, you're going to be dehydrated because your mouth's going to be open all the time. And so if you can do some type of training, even conditioning, by doing nasal breathing only to challenge yourself more, that is also beneficial.
Okay. All right. What about, how important is sleep to fitness?
Man, sleep is that secret weapon that nobody really talks about. It's not sexy to talk about, but it's one of those things that will carry over to every aspect of your life, whether that be from a health standpoint, a body composition standpoint, a performance standpoint. If sleep is not optimal, and it's unfortunate for a lot of cops, sleep is not optimal because of the nature of the job. And it can really impact your life, your longevity, the quality of life that you're living, and the energy standpoint that you're getting from that on a daily basis is not optimal. And then you start to learn that that's your new baseline, and then you think that's normal, but it's not. So I always use the analogy, like if you didn't charge your phone at night, and you tried to use it the next day, it's probably gonna die halfway through the day. Your body's operating off the same way, except your body's not going to crash out halfway through the day. You're going to be pounding caffeine to try to stay awake and stay alert, right? And too much caffeine, too many energy drinks, things like that. Those are just filled with a bunch of crap and fillers that are not good for us overall. I'm not saying I never drink energy drinks, but obviously we want to try to minimize that as much as possible. So sleep is huge, man. Sleep is one of those things that are definitely underrated.
Yeah, definitely sleep. You need it. You need it, especially as we get older.
Yeah.
Now, what would you rather see? 3 hard weeks or 3 solid years of intensity in the gym?
Oh, 3 solid years for sure. Like 3 solid years, like nonstop, or are you saying that being able to sustain like for 3 years?
No, just 3 years where you're consistent in the gym. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
there's a lot of people that put in, that first month of January of every year, they hit it hard, and then come February, memberships are, not being used.
Yep.
How do we stay consistent though, Drew?
Yeah, you have to find balance. You have to find something that's actually going to work with you and sustain with your work schedule. You can't just have that all in, that all or nothing mentality. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's like even the people that are trying to like join a program or like, hey, I'm going to do this, but like in a month when I can really go all in. Like, why? Why wait till you can? Why not just start now? You can still train 3 days per week. You can still stay consistent and start building those habits. And then in a month when you're not as busy, it's going to be a lot easier to sustain. So if you start when things are, hard, it's only going to allow you to sustain that when things are a little bit easier. And start slow. Like you don't have to train 5 days per week if you're just starting out. If you can train 2 to 3 days per week, have one day, DTAC or something like that, and then slowly start to build that volume and frequency throughout the weeks. It's always better to start on the low end than high end. And even so within your programming, like within your first couple of weeks, at the end of your workout, you should feel like if this is for someone that's like not trained at all, that's like maybe just starting out, right? You shouldn't feel like you're gonna die at the end of your workout. You should feel like a little bit energized. You should feel like, okay, cool. Like, I got a little bit of work I did. I got a little bit of sweat. I probably could have done a little bit more, but I didn't. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be completely capped out every single workout because your body's not going to recover from that, especially if sleep and nutrition is not optimal.
Okay, that's great advice. Now, somebody starting out that is trying the physical agility test, and they're encountering that 6 foot wall, which is not their friend. Drew, what advice do you give to those people? What exercises can help them get over that wall?
Yeah, so for one, some type of plyometrics, right? Some type of jumping, some type of box jumps, vertical jumps, jumping with weights, just to be able to allow you to be a little bit more explosive initially. Some type of pulling strength, because that could be maybe lat pull downs or rows, because you need to pull yourself over that wall as well. Grip strength is going to be huge because, depending on if it's a brick wall or, the fence or whatever, whichever wall you're trying to get over. But grip is going to be huge on that, because if you can't grip the top, you're going to continuously be slipping, and falling down. So things like, farmer's carries, plate pinches, any type of loaded carries, those are going to be great for you. And then practicing the movement, right? If you have a wall available to you, practice your technique. Some people can get over quickly. Some people have to use pull yourself up, swing that leg up, whatever it is, to be able to do that. And if that's your case as well, mobility is going to be huge as well. Because if you have tight hips and you can't swing your leg up, that's going to affect you from being able to get over that wall as well. Other thing I'd focus on is the landing. This is something a lot of people don't realize. Nobody ever gets hurt on the jump. They get hurt on the landing. So if we can learn how to absorb that force on the other side, to where you're not, tearing ACLs or jamming, your knees down or ankle pain, things like that. And then you can explode and continue further on into the obstacle course, whatever you're doing. You're going to be a lot less prone to injuries.
Okay. Because that question always comes up. Candidates always comes up. Now, with the minimum standards, you get the physical agility test, then you get the WSTB, which is the work sample battery test, and that's pretty much it. After that, most agencies in California don't have a physical test for cops. What's your opinion about that?
Man, I think that's terrible. I think that's leading to a lot of complacent officers, a lot of overweight officers, a lot of injuries, a lot of use of forces that don't need to be use of forces, or that turned out a certain way that didn't need to be that way. I think once you graduate, it's almost like you've met the minimum qualifications to become a cop. Now your physical standards that you're on your own on that. And realistically, I don't know all academies, but you're not really taught true like nutrition, strength training, programming and stuff in the academy, because obviously they're trying to teach you how to be a cop, right? The first, 10, 12 weeks are them beating you to the ground, trying to weed out the people that shouldn't be there. And then after that, they try to teach you, how to actually be a cop. and things like that, right? So afterwards, it's almost like PT standards are on your own, and then we're going to give you these yearly qualifications where biannually or not biannually, every 6 months or every 3 months of firearms qualification. You're going to have, well, I think once a year, so you do like your ACT, your re-up, but that's not enough to be able to sustain your job, man. And you have to go above and beyond and know that when you signed up for the job, like you have to prioritize this because it's your life at the end of the day. Um, so yeah, we could definitely do better. Departments could definitely do better, have better incentives, have PT tests, once a year maybe. I think that's like a bare minimum. And, allowing your officers to maybe, I know a lot of departments are allowing them to train on duty, train on their lunches. I think that's huge. I think that's a great idea. And putting more emphasis on that because not only are they going to be able to perform better, but they're going to have a better longevity of life. Like I know so many like partners that have retired and are living off of medications, and now they have high blood pressure, diabetes. They just had a heart attack. Like it sucks to work your whole life to have all these health conditions because you didn't prioritize yourself or you didn't have a department that also helped you prioritize these. But ultimately, it is our responsibility, but we could have some definitely help from our departments and agencies, 100%.
So what I'm hearing you say is accountability doesn't necessarily need to come from your department. It should come from within.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it would.
We can't have that victim mentality to where it's like, oh, I had to work or I'm working overtime, so I can't work out. Like, no, brother, like you still got to get after it, man. These are non-negotiables.
That's true. Non-negotiables. Biggest myth about police fitness.
That you have to have that all out mentality when you're doing it. You don't have to train like a CrossFit, athlete to where we're getting after all the time and where we're doing these WODs and we're doing these high rep Olympic lifts. And everything comes in phases and it needs to be periodized throughout the year and within your actual without your actual life. So that may be a fat loss phase, that may be a strength phase, that may be a hypertrophy phase, that may be a performance phase, but everything should take priority, should take a priority depending on the different phase that you're in. And don't feel like you have to just have that like all out, I'm going to be puking on the ground at the end of my workout. If not, it wasn't effective.
Okay. Now, what about one exercise that every first responder should be doing?
Oof. If I had to narrow down to one, it would be some form of deadlift.
Deadlift. Why the deadlift?
You said why?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. So deadlift is going to improve your overall total body strength, upper body and lower body and core. It's going to improve your power production, which is going to improve your sprinting. It's going to improve. You can even do it, even if you're not doing it heavy, you're doing it for speed. It's going to improve your speed and your power, your hips, when you're for takedowns and things like that. It's going to improve your grip strength. It's going to actually correlate to things on the job. It's going to improve your overall lower back. It's going to simulate, having to pick up your partner, you drag them to safety. There's so many benefits to a deadlift that I would say that's just like the one king exercise that I would always keep in.
And I love the deadlift. It is my favorite exercise. So you just reinforce that.
Perfect.
What about the most overrated fitness trend? What do you think?
I mean, some people are going to hate me for this, but I would say CrossFit.
Okay.
I mean, CrossFit has it's definitely changed from, over a decade when, obviously further than that when things started really popping off, right? But there was a lot of injuries that were happening, a lot of, high rep Olympic lifts and just poor programming. And it was doing a lot more damage than good. And they never trained the aerobic system, which is always going to be your foundation when it comes to your conditioning. And if you're only going into anaerobic and glycolytic type stuff where you're going, all out, balls to the wall, and you don't have a proper base, then you're doing yourself a disservice. It's equivalent to me taking a non-trained athlete and say, okay, we're gonna do a max on your deadlift today, and they're gonna be like, dude, I don't even know how to deadlift. Well, what's a deadlift? What's a hinge? Well, the same thing with the conditioning. If you haven't conditioned in a long time, we need to start with the baseline of your aerobic. We're not going to take you all the way up here and have you gassed out just to make you feel tired, right? Because I always tell people anybody can make you tired. Not everybody can make you better. And that's huge when it comes to programming.
Well, we all want to get better. We just got to put in the work.
Yes, sir.
Yes. One habit that can change everything for first responders.
Not having the victim mentality. I would say knowing that this job is going to break you down, knowing that the stressors are, that you are going to encounter, but you knew that when you signed the paper, right? You knew that when you went to the academy, and having the victim mentality of like, oh, I'm just not going to do this because I'm tired. I'm not going to do this because I'm working shift work. I'm not going to do this because I got called into mandatory overtime. So I'm going to eat my fast food. I'm going to skip my workout. I'm going to do this because of this. Don't have that victim mentality. Like own everything and you be in control, because when you give up control, it's going to make it a lot harder to be able to make that change, because you're always going to have that outside, like, oh no, I can't do this because of this. No, if you wanted to do something, you're going to actually do it. So don't have that victim mentality.
All right. What does it mean to be physically prepared to go home at the end of every single shift?
Yeah, like as far as like performing, as far as performing at a high level to be able to do that, or
Well, I guess let me rephrase that. What should I do to be physically and mentally prepared um, to get myself home every single day? Because, we preach about we go home, or, everybody make it home. But it starts with you. So what should we do to be prepared?
I mean, from a physical standpoint, non-negotiables, we need to be training at least 3 days per week. We need to be doing some type of DTAC 1 to 2 days per week. We need to be conditioning 1 to 2 days per week. Those are kind of like your baseline of where you want to be like physically. From a nutrition standpoint, you need to make sure that you're eating, like I said, 3 to 4 times per day, and eating healthy quality meals, not just relying on, Alberto's and McDonald's as a source of fuel. Um, you need to make sure that you're doing outside of that. You need to make sure that you're understanding overall recovery, and know that you're not, you're not your whole identity is not you being a cop. You could be a father, you could be a son, you could be a husband. You need to be doing other things on top of that as well when you're off duty, that are going to fill up your cup, right? They're going to bring you joy, that are going to allow you to recover, because being in law enforcement is stressful, and if you carry that stress with you 7 days per week, it's going to be a lot to recover from, and it's going to ultimately it's going to just chip at you year after year, until you have some really bad health issues. So just make sure that you are understanding the stressful demands of the job, know what's at stake, and know that I always tell people, be the officer that you want if your family's in need. So if your wife or your family is in need, and they call your department, I want you to be that officer that you want to show up for them. Like, do you want a slow, sloppy person, soup sandwich that's not really taking their job seriously, to show up to save your family? Or do you want a badass officer that takes care of himself and prioritizes his health and fitness? Be that officer. That's what I always tell people.
Last question, Dru. What if you were in charge of the state of California fitness program for first responders with no budget restraints? What does that program look like?
And it would be yearly testing for sure. It would be every department would have like a strength and conditioning style coach involved in programming for them, to where they're not just saying, not just giving them random workouts, but everything is structured. Every phase is building off the next, so we know that we're continuously making progress. It would be having a proper nutrition coach or nutritionist for within each department. So probably multiple, especially in those bigger departments, to where you can actually have that one-on-one connection with people, to give them feedback. Maybe not one-on-one if you have a department of thousands, but maybe they just at least like a group, to where you can all like hop in like a Zoom call, ask your questions. They can, dial in your nutrition, give you different things like that, rather than just, eat these foods and you're going to be good. Like, we need a little bit more structure than that. Teaching, how to operate around shift work, how to operate around night shift, how to, a mobility coach to help you mobilize your tightness and your stiffness in the shoulders, the lower back, and in the knee areas, things like that, to avoid injuries. And set these standards to where we're having those annual tests, and we're giving them um, the the desire and the want to be better because they know maybe that's a bonus or something for passing the test, or maybe that's, I mean, this we're talking like there's no restrictions, right? Like
Right.
incentivize as much as you can with your officers to try to be better overall, not just kind of leave them on their own.
Well, it sounds like it's something that's possible.
I mean, that would be great if that were the case. That would definitely change the way policing is for sure.
I agree. Dru, anything else that you would like our listeners to know, not just about 911 Strong, but about fitness in general or anything else?
Yeah, just kind of we touched on it earlier. Like, just remember, guys, like fitness is your lifeline, right? It's not just a matter of how you look; it's a matter of how you're performing. It's your confidence levels, and think of fitness as always like your force multiplier. It's always going to improve other aspects of your life, whether that be you being promoted, having that confidence, just being safe, having longevity in your career, having longevity after your career. So always make sure to prioritize your strength, your performance, and your nutrition, because your partners, and your family, they're depending on you, and yourself. You signed up for a job that can ultimately kill you, so prioritize that, take that seriously, and train hard.
Dru, thank you for being here. I appreciate you, man.
Man, it was an honor, brother. It was great to chop it up with you. I love this conversation. You had great questions, man. So you've definitely been doing a great job with the podcast, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Please subscribe. Let us know. Give us comments, what you like, what you don't like. And we're going to have our brother in Christ, our brother in law enforcement, Greg Admonson, share a little prayer with us to ensure that we think about everybody should make it home tonight. If you're working or you're going to be working, that you're safe. Thank you for watching.
We come before you with gratitude for the brave men and women who have answered the sacred call to protect and serve. You said in Romans 13, verse 4, that the one in authority is God's servant for your good. Lord, we thank you for every officer who stands the line. We thank you for every officer who runs toward the sound of danger when others run away. We thank you, God, for every officer who brings order out of chaos and who seeks justice with compassion. Father, as warriors in a fallen world, we draw our strength from you. Your word declares in Psalm 144, verse 1, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for every battle." Train our hands, Lord, not only for the battles of the street, but for the battles within. Give us courage when fear whispers. Give us patience when tempers rise. Grant us wisdom when decisions must be made in an instant. Lord, we ask for your divine protection over every officer in the field. Surround them with your angels as a shield, as you promised in Psalm 91. And let your peace guard their heart and mind in Christ Jesus. When they grow weary, remind them that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. Almighty God, you are our strength. You are our shield. You are our ever-present help in times of trouble. Father, when the day's work is done, bring them home safely. Restore their spirit, renew their joy, and remind them that they do not fight this battle alone. For you go before them, you go beside them, you are with them. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our Commander and King, amen.